Well, as much as I hate to admit it, this week, Crosstalk Solutions came this close to getting scammed out of multiple thousands of dollars. And this is the type of thing that can happen to anyone. I mean, we are well versed in phishing scams and network security, and yet it still almost happened to us. So grab some popcorn and sit back and relax as we go through the story of how Crosstalk almost got scammed. Welcome to Crosstalk Solutions. My name's Chris, and if this is your first time here, welcome, and make sure you hit like and subscribe for more videos just like this. We try to put out 2 to 3 tech videos per week. Also follow at Crosstalk SOL on Twitter for the latest updates, including any updates to this scam saga that we're about to talk about. All right, so the reason I'm doing this video is because it's interesting content. We did almost get scammed, but I really want to point out that this can happen to anyone. I mean, case in point, just last month, Jim Browning, a guy who has a YouTube channel with over 3 million subscribers that focuses on calling out scammers, had someone scam him into deleting his YouTube channel, right? So that's a really interesting video. I certainly suggest that you give it a watch, but literally, this type of thing can happen to anyone. Now, I've been listening to this podcast lately. I highly recommend it. It's called The World's Greatest Con, and it is hosted by Brian Brushwood of Modern Rogue fame. And he says in that podcast,
"Cons don't fool us because we're stupid. They fool us because we're human."
And he is absolutely right. If you almost get scammed, you're a victim, right? You're a victim of the scammer, you're a victim of a con artist, and it's not that you're unintelligent, it just can happen to absolutely anyone. So how did it happen to us? Let's take a look. 23 days ago, so this was a long con, if you will. 23 days ago, we received this email entitled Enquiry from Mike N, and I've redacted as much information as I possibly can here. Because I don't want to bring people into this, I just want to show you guys what happened. So we got this email from Mike N, and he came from clemsonedu.school. And if we scroll down, we can see that Mike's signature says Director of Procurement at Clemson University, Clemson, South Carolina. Clemson, of course, is a big major university here in the United States. And right now is the time that schools are buying equipment, especially voice over IP phone equipment, because they like to transition their PBX over the summertime. We have, I think, like 3 or 4 school phone system installs going right now. So it's not odd that a university would be contacting us to purchase some voice over IP equipment. What they're purchasing from us, though, or what they asked about, was a whole bunch of seemingly random items that we don't provide as Crosstalk Solutions. So that should be clue number 1, is that the people contacting us really don't know what we do here at Crosstalk. And the interesting thing about these cons, or this scam, is that it's a whole bunch of little things that you need to look for. And all of the little things added up, and when looked back on in hindsight, are totally obvious that this is a scam. But in the middle of it, we're not looking for this type of stuff. So what are these things? The first thing that we see here is a domain of clemsonedu.school. And that's a weird domain, but again, we didn't think much of it right off the bat. The actual Clemson domain is clemson.edu. This one is clemsonedu.school. So that should have immediately triggered some red flags, but not specifically looking at the email domain of every email that comes in. We get literally dozens of emails every day of people asking questions and sending us stuff like this. There's also a South Carolina phone number attached to the inquiry. Now, as I said, we get a whole bunch of emails like this that are asking us, hey, can you provide these, this list of things? And I've never really thought of these as scams right off the bat. It doesn't strike me as the type of thing that's a scam. It more or less strikes me as someone who's seeing if we can supply them with equipment that maybe they don't really understand exactly what we do. So by and large, what we do here is exactly what our guy Andy did. And he said, hey, thanks for reaching out. We don't resell Ubiquiti equipment. We also don't sell anything else on your list. Goodbye, see you later. Another red flag, too, before we move on, is that immediately this guy wants to set up Net 30 terms, which, again, for a school or any sort of government entity, That's not odd, right? Every school that we've done this summer has paid with net 30 terms, meaning that we send them all the equipment and then we send them an invoice, and within 30 days they pay us the invoice. But we're going out of pocket on the equipment that we're sending out to these customers. So by itself, so far, this is nothing too odd. We've got a school that's contacting us that wants to get some equipment. This is the time of year that they would be doing that. And we have a school that is wanting to set up net 30 terms. So not a big deal so far. So we told them, no, we don't sell any of that equipment. We're sorry. And the guy writes back and he says, hey, can you check on this then? The Yealink Cam 50. Now, one thing that we should talk about is one of the red flags here is some broken English. So we would like to set up a net 30 account with your company. Kindly enclose back with your net 30 term credit application, right? So it's not exactly perfect English. I don't normally hold broken English against anyone, and here's why. If someone has broken English, it usually means that English is their second language, right? Now me, I only speak one language, right? So someone who's trying to learn English as their second language already has one up on me. So who am I to, make fun of their broken English when they're doing something that I'm not doing, right? They're learning a second language. So I never hold broken English against anyone. But in this case, one of the red flags is the fact that this is a Mike, and then the last name is like Eastern European, maybe Polish last name from South Carolina. So Mike, Polish last name from South Carolina that has broken English. Well, that's maybe when you start putting two and two together there, it might seem odd. But again, we did not catch this right off the bat. In hindsight, it certainly seems odd. So Mike comes back to us and he says, hey, can you check on this item? And it's a Cam 50. It's the little camera. In fact, there's one right here. It's the little camera that goes on top of a Yealink T58 series phone. And so we said, yes, absolutely. Here's the price and send us this information. We'll get you a quote. This is all totally standard so far. Now that was 23 days ago. Now, of course, Andy, being a good sales guy, reaches back out after we haven't heard from them for a while. And he says, hey, 8 days ago now, I wanted to reach out and see if you're still interested in getting a quote. So the guy writes back and he says, how is your day going and family? Yes, please. Right, so when he said this, and I saw it, I had not been involved up to this point, but I saw this response, and I was kind of like, that's an odd response, but, okay, again, I don't hold broken English against people. Maybe it's just the way that this guy speaks. So he says, yes, he wants a quote. So then Andy writes back and he says, hey, I still need that billing information in order to get you a quote, and then the guy sends us this. Billing address is Clemson University, and I'm sure, I haven't looked this up, but I'm sure this is probably Clemson's actual physical address. And then the shipping address is on a PO, which he actually did not send us a purchase order. So Andy says, hey, what are you looking for exactly? Just one of these Cam 50s? And also, we didn't get a purchase order from you, so I can't reference the shipping. So then he comes back and he says, thanks for your reply. Can you send the quote and an image of the item? So Andy, without getting the billing information, just said, all right, well, I've got your email address. I'm going to send you an estimate to that email address. He did that. He also gave this guy a link to a picture of the Cam 50. The guy then comes back and he says, thanks for your reply. Please add these extra items to the quote. And again, he's not giving us quantities. He's just saying, here, add these items to the quote. We're guessing that he just wants to see pricing. So Andy diligently updates that invoice, resends it to the guy, and now this guy comes back and he says, hello, Andy. This is now 2 days ago, so this is Monday. We really appreciate the time and effort made on this, and here is the above new purchase order, form number, blah, 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 with the PDF attached, and we'll be glad if you can get back to us with the final invoice as well as the shipping and handling charges via email for file records, as well with the order confirmation and the ETA shipping schedule details from the warehouse as soon as possible. Again, kind of broken English, but we get what he's trying to say, so not a big deal. And he sends us this purchase order. As part of this email, though, we get this disclaimer down at the bottom. And honestly, again, this is one of those things that looking back in hindsight, this is weird. But how many of you guys, when you get an email, actually read the disclaimer that people put at the bottom of the email? I know I very rarely read that because it's usually something like, this email is intended for such and such person and any other use of it is unauthorized, blah, 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 legal, whatever talk, right? So we usually don't read disclaimers. And this disclaimer is kind of odd though. It says, please be advised that all invoices and pro forma and original invoices should be sent via email to the office of the purchasing administrator for a file record purposes, also shipping these products to the same Sayreville, New Jersey warehouse facilities management. So what? That's kind of a weird disclaimer. Let's take a look at this purchase order. So here's the purchase order. Now this is not going to come across on video very well, but the logo on the purchase order is very low quality, right? So that's sort of one of the first clues that this was weird. Now, the second weird thing is that the bill to is Clemson University at such and such Calhoun Drive, Clemson, South Carolina, but the shipping address is an address in Sayreville, New Jersey. Attention to Roy White. And what he's asking for, we had sent him the quote with the per unit pricing on these phones and devices. He wants 104 phones and 18 of those cameras for a total of almost $10,000 worth of equipment. Now, we love selling equipment, right? I will take $10,000 equipment orders all day long, right? That's what we do here at Crosstalk Solutions. It's one of the things that we do. Someone submits an order for hardware, we fulfill that order, get it sent out to them. That's basically like one of the best ways to make money because it's very low effort and we make decent income on the resale of this type of hardware. So when we see a $10,000 purchase order come through from Clemson University, we're like, heck yeah, we'll take that all day long. Now, the other weird thing on this purchase order is there's another weird disclaimer. It says, note, all invoice should be sent via email for record purpose. Okay, so again, broken English, and also making sure that we're driving everything through to this guy's email address. Now, we don't just blindly send out equipment when someone sends us a purchase order. There's a process to it, right? We send them a Net 30 application. They fill out the application, which has, their information, banking information, trade references, etc. They fill that out and send it back to us, and then we go over that information and approve or deny that Net 30 application. So, of course, that's what Andy did next. We very much appreciate the opportunity to work with you. Below, I have attached our Net 30 terms. If you could please fill these out, I will get you the invoice and we can get this order. So we sent them the Net 30 application. That was Monday at 12:46 p.m. And now, less than 2 hours later, he sent us back the Net 30 application filled out and a whole bunch of other supporting documentation. So look at all this stuff he sent us. So here's our Net 30 application. We'll take a look at that in just 1 second. Then he sent us a W-9 for Clemson University. He sent us their tax exemption certificate. Since they're a school, they would be tax exempt. And he sent them a whole sheet of various credit references. All of these looked completely legitimate, okay? The only thing that's a little bit weird is on the Net 30 app, there's a couple of contacts here. So we have accounts payable at clemsonedu.school, and then we have purchasing at clemsonedu.school. Now look at the phone number, which is a South Carolina DID, but we have extension 12 and extension 14. So again, these are the things that when you look back in hindsight, you're like, man, I should have spotted that was super fishy. But we're not staring at and scrutinizing their phone numbers on the Net 30 credit app. But looking back, it's like, why would a school the size of Clemson University have 2-digit phone extensions? That makes zero sense. They would have, 4, maybe 5-digit extensions because they probably have multi-hundreds of phones spread out throughout the campus. And then we've got all of their other information, but again, the EIN for a business, the DUNS number, that's all public information that you can look up, all right? That's nothing that's, that's sort of confidential or private information. And all of the other supporting documentation that they sent us, and they sent it to us very quickly. Like I said, less than 2 hours after we asked for the Net 30 app, they had the Net 30 app filled out, and by the way, here's all of this other information that I believe is actually all legitimate information. But something like the tax exempt certificate, the W-9, that's probably stuff that you can find online, or at some point maybe Clemson University was compromised in a security breach or something, and that information leaked online where, hackers or scammers have access to their W-9, their trade references, and their tax-exempt certificate. I don't know the answer to that, but it all looked legitimate to me. So having missed all of the other clues that have happened so far, and I know you guys are saying, Chris, you dummy, how could you have missed all of these obvious clues? Well, again, easy to say in hindsight, but keep in mind, this is over the period of multiple weeks now that we've been, going back and forth with this guy, along with all of the other stuff that we're doing here at Crosstalk. So, yeah, looking back, it's like, how could I have missed that? But it's also pretty easy to miss. So he sends back those forms, and everything looks good on our side, so we approve the Net 30 application, and we place the order for, almost $10,000 worth of equipment to be sent out to this shipping address in New Jersey. So obviously we don't want to lose that kind of money, and this is where I say we came this close. We actually placed the order for this guy based on all of the information that he had sent us to head out to that random warehouse in New Jersey. The next morning, however, it was too late for the order to go out the day that we purchased it. The next morning, 6:37 in the morning, we get an email from the guy, hey, how was your night and day going? Thanks for the update. So again, the broken English. How was your night and day going? And this time, Andy smartly thought to himself, you know what? Let me just do a little bit of digging, right? So he started doing a little bit of investigative work. And what he found was he searched for the name of this contact at Clemson University and found this page right here. So here is our guy, Procurement Director Mike N., right? Works for Clemson University, and right on their webpage, Clemson has "See fraud alert above" before calling this phone number. And the fraud alert says, Procurement Services has been notified of fraudulent emails being sent to suppliers replying to a price request. Please be aware that legitimate requests for quotes would be sent directly from our online bidding system or from one of our contract officers. You can confirm our email address below, as many scams use an address similar but not our actual email. So at this moment, Andy was like, oh crap, right? We placed this order. He immediately got on the phone with our distributor, and luckily, the distributor caught the shipment before it left their warehouse. So, no harm, no foul. We did not actually get scammed, but man, were we close. We were so close to losing almost $10,000 worth of equipment. So after we saw this online, Andy also called up Clemson University's procurement department and was like, hey, we got this random PO. Was this you guys? And they confirmed that, in fact, that was not them. This is a known thing from Clemson University, that people are using their information to try to purchase equipment on Net 30 terms to be shipped to New Jersey. And so now we need to figure out who the heck is doing this, right? It's very, very odd. What information do we have to go on for trying to figure out who this is? We have the phone number that they gave us, we have their email domain, and we have the shipping address, right? So those are sort of the 3 bits of information that we know for sure is going to be somehow related to this scammer. Let's start with the email domain because that's the easiest one. If you do a whois lookup on clemsonedu.school, we can see that the creation date of this domain was May 14th, 2021. Okay, so that is basically about 3 months ago is when this domain was first registered. Now it's registered with Namecheap, and Namecheap has private registration, where if you have private registration with Namecheap, your city and state and country, IS I believe is Iceland, and they are in Reykjavik, however you say that. The private domains with Namecheap are all going to look like this. It really is a dead end. It doesn't give us any information about the scammer whatsoever, but it does have a registrar abuse contact email, and of course I took all of the information that we learned and I did send it over to abuse@namecheap.com. They acknowledged receipt, but of course they just say, hey, we'll do what we can, but you may never hear an update on this ever again. So that's just a black hole, probably never going to go anywhere. So then we have the shipping address they gave us, which was in New Jersey, which of course is really weird. Why are they giving us a shipping address in New Jersey for phones that are, meant for Clemson University? Again, stuff that in hindsight you look back and you're like, of course, that was silly. If you do a Google search on the shipping address, it comes to this webpage. There's a company out there that this address actually belongs to. And the company is a freight forwarding company, or I should say a Nigerian freight forwarding company, meaning a company that you can sign up with them. I'll show you, it actually says how it works. You sign up and you get a USA-based address that people can ship stuff to. When stuff is received at that US-based address, which is in New Jersey, they then package everything up and reship it to Nigeria, whatever address you've given them for Nigeria. Now, this company's website, it looks pretty normal. They also have a Yelp page. And on their Yelp page, there's a couple of weird things. We have this review from East Brunswick, New Jersey, which has very specific information about the company. And of course, with Yelp, usually the first review is whoever, owns that company or has something to do with that company. They're going to give that company a great review on Yelp. Like you look up any restaurant, the first review is always the restaurant owner giving himself a 5-star review for his own restaurant, right? So this person had very specific information, so I completely discount that this is a real Yelp review. But we scroll down here and we see 2 other Yelp reviews. One says, scammer location. Guy tried to buy goods from me online and wanted me to send it to this address. It was a huge scam. Be aware of this place. They will just take your goods without paying you. They have a scam email set up with Venmo and PayPal. Now, I didn't get any Venmo addresses or PayPal addresses, so there must be multiple scams happening through this, freight forwarding company. Another one down here, same sort of stuff, just really bad review. They tried to, I guess, ship something through them, and it just, fell flat and didn't work. So on Google, they also have reviews, but they're pretty mixed. They've got like 3.7 stars out of 5 on Google, with, again, very mixed reviews. Now, if we look at the actual building, if we look at the actual address on a Google Street View, this is it, right? So it's just a completely nondescript building in the middle of New Jersey somewhere. So really not much to go on here. And, I would, maybe give out the address or the name of this business, except that probably one of 3 things is going on with this business. Either A, they're completely innocent and they're just an actual freight forwarding company. Maybe they don't have great customer service, but they're innocent in this. And a scammer is using them to do freight forwarding to Nigeria. B, this might actually be the scammer, right? There might be the scammer. The owners of this company might actually be the scammers. I don't know. I don't know that at all. Or C, probably the most likely thing is that these people run this business. They're aware that there's probably some fishy stuff going on, but they're looking the other way because they're making money being a freight forwarder, right? They're like, hey, we have nothing to do with the boxes and packages that come through our office. All we do is receive them and then ship them, and that's it. So probably that's what's going on here. So we don't want to dox this company unnecessarily. And then, of course, the last bit of information that we have from this guy is a phone number, right? So I decided to go ahead and call the phone number and see what we see.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. Please leave a message after the tone.
Hi, this call is for Mike. This is Chris Sherwood calling from Crosstalk Solutions. I had a quick question about this order that we're trying to process. Okay, so basically it was a dead end. The phone number just went directly into a voicemail box that had the default greeting. It's an asterisk-based voicemail because I know that was Allison Smith's voice that picked up the voicemail. And I just left him a voicemail and I, under kind of false pretenses. And I said, hey, this is Chris from Crosstalk. We want to get this order shipped out to you, but we need to know who we're sending it to, like attention to whom. And he did say earlier in the email where the attention is going, but I was, ignoring that. And I also offered to upgrade him to, 2-day or overnight shipping if he wanted. And the guy wrote back a little bit later and he said, attention to this guy, I think it was Roy White, and then also, yes, we want to upgrade to 2-day shipping, right? So he did write back to tell me that information. Now, once he wrote back, and I knew that he was still in this, and he knows that I am imminently going to be sending these packages, I wrote him back again and I said, okay, we're going to get this shipped out today. I'll send you the tracking information as soon as I have it. And oh, by the way, funny story, I was just at Clemson University a couple years ago. Check out this awesome picture that I took from Clemson. And of course, the picture is just a picture I found online of, Clemson University campus, but it was a Grabify link. Okay, so it's a link that basically, if he clicks on that picture, it's going to send me his, type of computer or phone that he's on, his IP address, his location, geolocate the IP address, and basically a whole bunch of information about this person. So I'm trying to bait him into clicking on a link, which as of the recording of this video, he has not clicked on it yet. In fact, let me just double check again. So no, as of the recording of this video, he has not clicked on the link yet, but of course I will put an update out on Twitter at Crosstalk SOL if I do get any further updates to this scam saga. So what do we do next? Now obviously I'm still going to try to identify the guy, but I've got sort of two sides of my conscience. One side is saying, you know what, just you walked out of this one barely, you didn't lose any money, no harm, no foul, just leave it alone. The other side of me is like, send him a glitter bomb. Or send him a poop bomb, if you guys have seen this. Poop senders, always fresh, always anonymous. You can actually send someone cow dung, elephant crap, gorilla poop, or a combo pack of all three. So, we could send this through. The funny thing about this too is they put a business card in there in the poop that you now have to open it up if you want to find out who sent it. But of course, you flip the card over and it just says, we'll never tell you who sent it, right? So, pretty funny, but again, they'll probably know it was Crosstalk that sent them this, and I don't want to have someone who's already doing something that's very illegal have now animosity towards me, right? So I'll probably just leave him alone, but you guys let me know what you think down below. I am open to suggestion. So now here's the part of the video where we can all learn from our mistake, right? What are the red flags that we should have noticed throughout this entire thing? Again, all combined and added up, it's very obvious that this is a scam. But if you take any one of these things individually, they're either very easy to miss or they're just not that suspicious, right? So number one, we had a guy contact us out of the blue looking to place a large order. Again, on its own, not that suspicious because we get those all the time. Right? People watch me on YouTube and they're like, hey, let's buy some stuff from this guy, right? It happens on a very regular basis. Now, granted, most of those aren't, $10,000+ orders, but it does happen pretty regularly. So in and of itself, not too suspicious. Number two, broken English. Now, the broken English itself is not that suspicious because we do have folks that are English as a second language and it's not that big a deal. But you also have to put two and two together. It's a guy from Clemson University in South Carolina. He's got a sort of like Polish or Eastern European last name, and he's got very broken English. So those together don't really add up. It's not entirely unlikely, but it just kind of doesn't add up. It should have set off some warnings and red flags. All right, a non-official email domain. This should have been the biggest clue, and we just straight up missed it. Stuff coming from a college is going to be .edu. This was clemsonedu.school. So again, just a very odd domain that anyone can go out there and purchase. Also, not able to get them on the phone as well as the strange phone numbers. Now the phone number, the DID itself was not strange. It was a South Carolina DID. I looked it up. The extension numbers were odd because a school the size of Clemson would not have 2-digit extension numbers. Also, I was unable to get them on the phone, and when I called the number, it just went straight to a generic voicemail box with no greeting, no IVR, no nothing, right? So that is fishy, but we didn't actually call that phone number until after we knew that it was already a scam, right? So just something to, if you're curious if it's a scam or not, call the phone number, just see what happens, right? Now there were other oddities, such as the email disclaimers. They had some very odd email disclaimers urging us to make sure everything goes through email, kind of forcing us away from the phone, right? They didn't want us to be calling them. They wanted us to go through email, and that's just kind of a weird thing to put in an email disclaimer. An email disclaimer, by the way, that's very easy to miss because again, you don't typically just read every email disclaimer for everyone that sends you an email. And then, of course, probably the most obvious thing, which, again, it's not entirely outside the realm of possibility. We have customers order stuff from us where their billing address and shipping address are in totally different states. That happens all the time. In this case, though, Clemson University, why would we be sending stuff to New Jersey? Right? That's one of the things that should have, triggered something. And I remember because we kind of felt that it might be a scam, and then they sent us all of the supporting documentation with the Net 30 application that all looked completely legitimate. So we were kind of like, let's not send this guy anything until we know that he's returned that Net 30 app and we can look over it and approve it. All of the stuff they sent us was so good that we kind of were like, joking about, well, if it is a scam, the most that we're going to be out is, this amount of thousands of dollars, right? I made that joke to Andy. I said, well, I guess this is how much we'd be out if it turns out this is a scam. And again, luckily we caught it. So there you have it, the saga of Crosstalk Solutions almost getting scammed this week. It can happen to anyone, especially folks that maybe aren't well versed in email phishing scams. Something like 70+% or more of all system compromises and successful scams happen through email. Okay, so especially for people in your purchasing department, your accounting department, make sure that they are well versed on this type of stuff. Have a meeting with them and say, hey, these are the things that you need to look out for so that you don't get scammed. All right, tell me your scam stories. I'd love to hear them. Put them down in the comments below. I'm going to read absolutely every single comment on this video. If you guys like this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please click subscribe. My name's Chris with Crosstalk Solutions, and thank you so much for watching.